Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another EA Zoom presentation. We'd like to introduce our newest speaker, Suzanne Holbrook. She is a practicing pediatrician, and she also practices functional medicine with adults and has been studying evolutionary astrology and studied under Jeffrey Wolf Green and Maurice Fernandez. And today she's going to give a talk about the water element and our soul's evolution.
Thanks, Robin. Appreciate this opportunity. Well, the water element, the soul evolution, where the rubber meets the road, that's my contention here today. And I'm very interested in a discussion, a conversation about this process because it is a process. And what I see is from my perspective, and I would love it to have that open discussion about it. But we'll start with my views and we'll see where it goes from here. So these are the players, Pisces, Neptune, and the 12th house. I want to be very clear that all of these are the 12th archetype. So that when I talk about Pisces or Neptune, then it's really all mushed into one archetype. And there's no distinction between the sign and the planet, for example. And it is water, obviously what we're talking about today, but mutable water. So one, I think, illuminating approach to this archetype is a gas phase. And that will become more relevant as I move through this talk. Cancer, the moon, and the 4th house is the 4th archetype. And that is water and cardinal water. So to me, this process is very much about the start. And that is a very relevant issue when during this conversation, as we'll see. I like to think about it really as kind of a gel, because not only are you in one place and processing, hopefully, but you're also moving ahead. And so therein lies the rub sometimes with the 4th archetype, is making sure that we are processing appropriately, adequately, not too much. We can get overcooked, and that can be a way that it gets kind of blocked and stopped up. And also always starting something with that cardinality. And the 8th archetype, which is Scorpio, Pluto, and the 8th house, fixed water, gives a very important image about this 8th archetype process, is that like ice, is that it is in form. And we all in evolutionary astrology think of this as something that is in process, the soul, that we are actually incarnate in this form, in this body, this personality, in order to make changes to this 8th archetype, Pluto, the soul, the whole point. And so that if we make the choices along the way that make it easy for us to evolve the soul, then it's not an abrupt rupture necessarily, but being all having a Pluto, intrinsic to that, I think, are some facets of rupture, of discomfort. It's Pluto, for goodness sake. And so, rupturing the fixity of that form is part of the implication in fixed water. So the players. In a nutshell, this is what I would like to teach and to leave people with, is this picture. So let me take you through what I mean by this. So what I'm saying is that this form is the incarnate soul, in this, the personality in this lifetime, that we are distinct and particulate, and that we bring in habitual responses and patterns, that I think that the intention of being incarnate and a distinct entity is to bring those up those fixed habitual patterns, bring them up in this lifetime, re-experience situations, thoughts, people, and to reevaluate and to move those to a new place, you know, evolve the soul. So the habitual preloaded patterns are shown by the nodal axis and Pluto. And the moon is also in there as part of the distinct personality entities, parts. And the moon is what is the mouth of our soul in this particular incarnation. It's our personality. You know, it's the lens that we filter all our experience through. But not only is it the lens, that passive filter, it's also a mouth that has distinct taste buds and needs particular nourishment. And that by bringing in and feeding from the energies as indicated by our moon, whether it be the moon itself, the fourth house, then and also the sign of Cancer in our chart, then that's specific food for our soul growth. So that particular new process, you know, it's again that cardinality, it's starting us on a new path. And that through a lifetime, as we eat from the signature of the fourth archetype, we bring it in, it becomes us, we become it, and we are changed through that our fourth archetype. So very important that we are naked and vulnerable to that energy. So a really important issue with the water element is that need to be vulnerable, that need to be naked in all of those signatures of fourth, eighth, and I would say Neptune as well, 12th, in order to allow change to those habitual responses. So that's the circle, is each of our individualized consciousness personalities in this lifetime. And Neptune being outside that, you know, it's a little uncontrollable, chaotic, unknowable. It's there before we're conceived. It's there in the womb. It's a very beautiful portrayal of Neptunian energy is our experience in the womb. And then when we are born, it's outside it, but it perpetually invades across boundaries. You know, it's that gaseous nature of Neptune, unformed and subconscious, you know, conscious to some extent. Every now and then we get those waves of union and understanding, and then all of a sudden it's gone and we're left alone. But that is an important part of our individual personality driven life and evolution, is to make peace with this Neptune, is my contention. So it's about seeding, it's about processing, is the emotional body there. The water element, what do these archetypes have in common? And so I always like to think of it as an evolutionary astrologer. What does the soul need? You know, what is the purpose at a foundational level for these archetypes? To me, water is about evolution of the soul. It's about that need for vulnerability and intimacy in order to be naked with our fears. You know, Pluto, we have to go to the pain. We have to, because basically what is Pluto at a foundational level? Pluto's the soul. And we come in, it's the most intensely held sense of security. And why in the world would we want to mess with our most profound, deepest sense of safety, and so we're put on this planet in a body, and we're handed this intense sense of vulnerability, because part of us realizes that that very most foundational security need, the whole point is to change it. The whole point is to evolve it if we are here to evolve our soul. So there is this intense attraction to change, because we do understand that there will be elaborated, released huge amounts of power and stability if we can go there and really face our deepest sense of vulnerability, wherever Pluto is in our chart. But on the other hand, we reject it. It's that running the opposite direction as fast as you possibly can, because that is such an intense process. So much fear, so much powerlessness. And, it takes a lot to look that in the eye. So it's that kind of thing we're looking at here with the water element. Am I going to allow myself to face that vulnerability? Similar with the moon, it's sometimes that hard, especially you can look at the chart and see a soul that's coming in with this need to start a new process. Moon, fourth archetype, cardinality, start a new process with creating a support system, with feeding myself from this archetype. But if you see, for example, you see maybe moon or fourth archetype with Aquarius moon, classic for what? For fracturing the emotional body, and that the intensity of healing that may be necessary in order to get that particular soul to allow vulnerability in this lifetime with their process. So there are some classic signatures that show us that these processes have been foundationally difficult, and that a primary intention in this lifetime is to go there and work on intimacy, on vulnerability, in order to further soul evolution. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. It can create wounding when we allow that kind of vulnerability and allow ourselves to be that naked with these archetypes, but it is necessary for lasting soul change. So now, again, talking about these players, remember that picture that I told you I wanted you to remember. The encircled symbols in there are nodes of the moon. So the reason that the nodes of the moon are important is that they absolutely are a water symbol, and very intricately and intimately involved with soul evolution, because by looking at the nodal axis, aspecting planets, what house, all that, we get very quickly into past life emotional dynamics. And it is the preload for the present life personality. And we reconfigure those energies in the present lifetime in order to further the evolution of our soul. So what are the nodes of the moon? Well, astronomically, it's a meeting point of from the Earth, the path of the sun, so the ecliptic, and the path of the moon, at the intersection points. There is not a physical body there, but the intersection points of the sun and the moon are the nodes of the moon. So we get, with that description, the personality from past lifetimes. So it's such a poignant image to me, because the sun in this lifetime is it's who we are, it's our creativity, it's our gift, it's ours to give. You know, in this lifetime, our personality is depicted by the sun and the moon. The moon is what we need emotionally. And so that the combination of these two energies is what we're bringing in from past lifetimes, really, with the nodal axis. And as I say, it encapsulates past life personalities, soul memories, and it is the starting point of emotional needs and responses in the present incarnation. So that's why it's the preloaded energies in that emotional body image and what we are working with as a starting point in the present lifetime. The other, another archetype on that slide of emotional body is Pisces, Neptune in the 12th house. I have this first because, as I mentioned, I think that it's that the porousness of Neptune kind of frees it from time and space. It was there before our conception, there with our intrauterine life. And I have this picture of a baby that's in the womb because to me, that's a perfect starting place for this energy of the 12th archetype, because we're taken care of, you know, we're loved unconditionally. We have no understanding at this phase of the need for anything, that everything is taken care of. And we're in this place of oneness and all knowing. But the need to know isn't even a thing, because just being kind of energetically present is all that's necessary, because we know everything at all time, at all place, and are one with creation. And what a beautiful thing. And you know, I would say that in evolutionary astrology, so we have the soul, Pluto, and that we have Pluto is the most foundational sense of security. And the point of this lifetime is to realize that those past security needs are limiting. And so we're incarnate to rupture that security, that sense of security, and find a new value system that then brings us to a new sense of security. And so that's Pluto facing that fear of loss of that sense of security. But why are we doing it? You know, why are we doing it? And I would say it's, you know, about desires. It's about getting rid of all the desires, and just the only desire that we end with is the desire for union again. And I think that's Neptune. But this is the other side of it. You know, we have the womb before we're born, but then we're born. And then what? We're hungry. And so all of a sudden, what happens? We're not taken care of. We're not in that state of oneness and perfection where everything is there for without even needing to ask for it, because it's all there without any need for desire. But then we're born and we're hungry, and we all of a sudden realize that, you know what, we don't have everything. Everything isn't handed to us, and we have to suffer, and we're out of control, and so that there's that immediate sense of disillusionment that somebody's lied to us, that it's not right there, that you know that, and so there's the pain and the chaos and the loss of trust and all that. And so an important piece of healing, just by virtue of being born and cutting the umbilical cord, is reconciling ourselves as an entity, as a person distinct from perfection, reconciling ourselves with that disillusionment that is intrinsic to being born, to being separate. And so that's the way that this 12th archetype becomes personal. And, you know, it will come and it will go. Things will happen and it won't be fair. And then we'll, you know, be alienated again and thrown back on ourselves. But again, that coming back to that sense of trust in the process, trust in life, and being open to those times, whether it's a second where all of a sudden we're like, there it is, that sense of trust, that sense of knowing that it's not just me, that there's more, that we are all part of. And it's a beautiful feeling if we can get there. But that personal relationship, I think, is part of the water element. Another thing that being a medical doctor, I wanted to integrate possible physical symptoms and diseases that are the soul talking to us through. And through understanding the ways that the soul is talking to us or talking to our clients, then we can look at the chart and say, aha, now is the time to heal that. So it gives us a finger on the pulse of the soul if we understand what physical symptoms can arise from these archetypes. And there may be more, so please, this is not an all-inclusive list. Pisces archetype and possible physical symptoms are immune dysfunction, dissolving of the physicality in some way, lots and lots of ways that can show up. One of the charts I have in this presentation shows this, and I'll remind you at the time. It can be just fatigue, hard to diagnose conditions, which is, opening the door to many, many things. But being a doctor, it happens all the time that we can't quite understand what it is. But if we know that it's a Pisces, that it's something to do with a relationship this individual has with their life, that they've lost faith, perhaps, that it can help in the conversation. Toxins in the environment can show up in many ways in the body, but that's another thing, is that if you have a lot of Piscean elements, 12th house, 12th archetype to the natal chart, that person could be at more risk of toxicity. And emotional, mental, spiritual would be anxiety, psychosis or psychotic symptoms, and disassociation. So moving on to the 8th archetype, Pluto, Scorpio, and the 8th house. So I've already mentioned a few times, to me, what Pluto is. It's the soul, it's the ongoing desire with integrating into a body over and over and over, reincarnation. And that with each incarnation, the hope is that we will get less and less separating desires. And that Pluto shows us in a nutshell what have been our desires. And that the desires in and of themselves keep us from fusion, keep us from ultimate elimination of desires. And so that is the point of incarnation, is getting to what is our foundational security base, what makes us feel secure, what connects us with, what we have learned about in the past, what has been our focus, and what have we based our security upon. And that in this lifetime, we are here to bring that up for renegotiation, to reevaluate it, to feel it, and to see the ways that security base is not necessary anymore. That would be the cooperating language. It's not necessary. We are here to develop new values. My teacher, Maurice Fernandez, has said it beautifully, is that the opposite archetype of 8th is the 2nd. It's building new value system, that then we can realign our desires with something new. And then therein lies soul evolution. But Pluto, understanding, this deep security need brings insecurity, brings frustration, it brings pain, and it takes a lot to visit this shadow, because going deep to that place of security takes guts, and it's difficult to let go of the deepest held security needs that we've got. But that's the soul. That's what we're all here about. So Scorpio archetype, possible physical symptoms. I love to think about this in terms of transformation processes, because that is what 8th archetype is about, is transformation. Pancreatitis, or the pancreas, it's where many enzymes are created for digestion. So if these aren't functioning well, because enzymes are about taking a molecule from one form to another in the body. So there's many processes in the physical form where this is relevant. For example, with digestion, if you aren't digesting well, then it can show up with abdominal pain. It can show up with malabsorption. It can show up with problems with the stool. It can also show up with this process called methylation that is foundational for so many different parts of function in the body. So methylation is important for detoxification. And then that can be related to that Neptunian archetype of poisoning from the environment that we have to detoxify in order to be healthy. So if we have a very Piscean 12th archetype symbology going in our chart, where we're very sensitive to the environment and toxicity. And then we have stressed scorpionic archetype, then we may really be at risk for poisoning from our environment because we're not able to detoxify those elements, for example. It's also, methylation is very important and foundational for DNA, so the foundation building blocks of who we each are as an individual, which isn't that fascinating, because what makes each of us individual is our DNA, and that is each individual incarnation. And it's very, very beautiful representation of Pluto. But methylation is involved in replication of the DNA. So if there's a problem with methylation, then that can lead us to some cancers, because if the cells aren't dividing in a healthy way, that can lead to cancer. So this archetype could show up if it's stressful. One way that the soul would be speaking to us would be to bring to this process to our attention with a cancer. And one of the charts I'm showing in this presentation is a person with cancer. Another way, emotional, mental, spiritual, this can show up is with anxiety, depression, rage, and deep fear. So going back to this emotional body portrayal, we have here, these are the archetypes I've just talked about: the nodal axis, the habitual patterns at an emotional level that we're bringing in to reconfigure, re-experience, in order to set that process of soul evolution happening. Pluto here, or any of the 8th archetype symbols strongly presented in the chart, having to reconfigure the deepest security needs and to face that, to become naked with those fears in order to evolve the soul. And then the Neptune, forming a personal relationship with life and the chaos that it brings, and the disillusionment that we experience by being incarnate, and that this can trip us up on the path of soul evolution, or if we make a personal relationship, form a personal bond with that which is chaotic, but that brings us the possibility of trust in the process, then it helps along the path of soul growth. So here, next phase in this talk is about the new processes that being incarnate, we hope to bring in order to bring in new energy for growth, for development, for the water element. But remember about being naked. You know, we are born and we hopefully have the loving arms of a mother, of whatever maternal energy. Obviously, that it can also be anybody in your world that brings this sense of nourishment, you know, gives us what we need to feel safe, that we can allow that vulnerability that we all are as a newborn baby to be taken care of well. But this fourth archetype is what we see. You know, really fun, a fun way to experiment with this with your own world is to look at the moon every day to see what sign it's in. And it's fascinating. That will teach you about this fourth archetype because it's what you see that day. It's what you're learning about that day. And so that is an important illustration about our fourth archetype in our natal chart, in our client's natal chart. It's what they're seeing. And so it's what becomes their world, you know? So to me, it's about what opens, softens, nourishes, and enriches our life. You know, it's what we are nourished through eating. It's what our taste buds want. For each of us, that's different. And by eating of that energy, then we are sustained and we are made more stable and we're given connection. And we are then feeling more and more comfortable. We can open to that energy. It becomes us, we become it. And through a lifetime, we're changed by that fourth archetype. A very slow process, but an important part with part and piece of information is what if this is disrupted? You know, how can this process be a problem? And we can see this in a natal chart. So for example, one of the charts I'm going to show you has many, many examples of the way that this can be, you know, a monkey wrench can be thrown in the work so that it just stops. And so, for example, if you have, you know, the Cancer Capricorn axis is classic because Capricorn's about growing up. Cancer's about being a child and being vulnerable. And if that process hasn't been supported well, and you've had to grow up too fast, or over lifetimes you have not been able to be vulnerable, then you haven't had the necessary situations that allow this process to happen. You haven't had a safe space in which to grow new paths of soul growth. And so that can be seen in natal charts. And it represents the present life personality. And I would say with the inner planets. So, you know, Mars in a chart is our instinctive attraction. And that is part of this incarnation's needs is being attracted to certain energies. And then Cancer is right, the cardinal element in the water sign. So that is an instinctive new process of growth. And we have to, though, process where we are, process and feel, and then we can move safely into a new phase of life. So it's a very interesting back and forth, you know, but be careful about going too fast and skipping steps. We need our process with fourth archetype symbols in the chart. So possible moon fourth archetype physical symptoms. So this fascinating functional medicine, we talk a lot about the gut, about healthy gut. and the ways in which the gut can affect the entire organism. So fourth archetype profoundly is manifested in the gastrointestinal system. You know, speaking of nourishment, speaking of what we hunger for, what our taste buds are attracted to, it's all references to the alimentary system and ways that the alimentary system can talk to us would be, for example, with pain in the gut, with maldigestion, with acid reflux, classic fourth archetype Mars energy expression. And that the ways that if we have ill health with the cells of the alimentary system, that can stimulate the immune system. You know, we can absorb poorly digested food into our body, and that creates an immune response. So it can show up not only with pain in the gut and with malabsorption, maldigestion, but also with autoimmune symptoms. So it can manifest with brain symptoms. We can be foggy, you know, have brain fog. We can bring anxiety, depression, and rage and fear and all that, just simply from not digesting your food and having gut microbiome trouble. So it's a very complex interrelationship with the entire body. And breasts and uterus, female organs, can also be any fluid filled structure. So cysts in the body can be a way that our fourth archetype is talking to us that it needs a little attention, for example. So then we add into this emotional body picture the moon, the fourth archetype. So we are fed bringing it through this. We're attracted to this deliciousness and we're nourished by it, and it makes us comfortable, and we ground in that energy and we bring it in and it becomes us, and we then bring new energy into these habitual patterns that the soul has brought in from relevant past lifetimes. So that is my way of thinking about the water element, the way that they work together, the way that the soul evolves through this nakedness, through the allowing of our process to, it's making friends with being vulnerable, making friends with looking at our security needs, and that this can come up in many, many ways in our process as being an individual incarnate being. You know, if we have deep fears, if we feel anxious, if we have intense rage issues, if we feel this sense of brain fog and that we don't know where we're going, what we're doing, we feel a huge sense of disillusionment. All those things are the water element talking to us. And we can see these things in our patients' natal charts. The other really important thing to say is physical symptoms direct us, attach us, bring us directly face to face with transits. I really think that asking our clients what are relevant issues for them right now that they want to talk about is so important, because it brings us face to face with issues that are relevant right at that moment. Because a natal chart talks about a lifespan, but you're talking to somebody at a discrete moment in time. So that is a really important point to make about reading natal charts. But physical symptoms directly connect us with what's relevant in the moment. So we're into natal chart discussion, just to kind of ground these concepts. So this is Patrick Swayze, an actor who died from pancreatic cancer. And not to go into extreme detail, I just want to illustrate the relevant archetypes that I've just discussed. We see here this loaded signature around Pluto and the South Node, and they're to the same degree. This soul came into this incarnation with this intense desire to confront ways that he's felt powerful and powerless, and to go to his most intensely felt issues with security. It is about, his creativity. We know he's an actor. We know that he's quite a good actor. And we know that he has, as the ruler of all this Leo, this sun in Leo in the 12th house. So what a huge statement about what makes him, what he wants to face in this lifetime. His deepest security needs are about his personal relationship. Leo sun is my gift, my personal, as a distinct entity in this lifetime, my relationship with all that I'm not in control of. That's quite a signature. And so he will be brought, what will be brought to his attention in this lifetime with that moon there is what ways do I have at my disposal to be seen, to contribute? Where does my creativity lie? What is my special gift? Something profound, something that's quite inspirational, but also that will bring me face to face with my deepest fear, which is about that maybe I actually have no meaning. What if everything that I believe in doesn't matter? He's brought face to face with that over and over and over again in his life. And squaring this nodal axis, squaring Pluto, is this axis is the Scorpio Taurus axis about my values, about facing issues of his greatest security, and I think his lifestyle, being an actor, about what do I value about money, about seeing intense wealth, and then questioning that, is that power? I think that this Mars in Scorpio is questioning what has value, what foundationally can be relied upon to always be there, and so it's a profound questions this soul has had to contend with. And it always comes back to his relationship with the unknown, with his life, with spirit, and what really matters in this lifetime. So what a brave soul. And his Cancer, I think, brought him face to face with this issue at the end of his life, like what matters, what is my relationship ultimately to this unknown that is life and death. And so I think that's what this chart, on a very deep level is about. So Selena Gomez, I think her chart is beautiful. And is what has such a powerful statement over and over and over in her chart is this. It makes me kind of cry because she's got this intense sensitivity. She's got all this Cancer, fourth archetype, Pluto in the 4th house. She's got Sun in Cancer in the 12th house. She's got squaring Moon in Aries, on an angle. And she's got her South Node in Cancer. So what a profound question this soul had to contend with coming into this lifetime about safety, about where am I safe? And I really think she profoundly had experiences growing up of not being safe. And that a lot of her life in this incarnation is about developing a security net, developing a support system, and experiences where she was over and over and over flung back on herself to reconfigure ways that she could feel secure. You know, we can see in her life that she's had profound struggles physically. She's got lupus, which is an autoimmune condition. She required a kidney transplant because of the intensity of this disease. So autoimmunity is 12th house Neptune. We see here her sun, you know, her life's process is to make peace with this unknown of her disease and to become comfortable with that. That's asking a lot. And autoimmunity, 12th house, Neptune, squaring this Aries, you know, she's attacked by the environment, by life in general, extremely sensitive soul, person, physicality that's continually assaulted because of this extreme sensitivity. So on so many levels, we can see this manifesting. So autoimmunity, having to make peace with that. And that's a day-to-day process with her. You know, it is very personal. That she's got also bipolar disease and anxiety, depression with that. So this intense question of when am I in control and when I'm not in control. You know, this 12th house, 6th house axis fully populated and Neptune in the 6th house. And, you know, we say her boundaries, Capricorn, are not well established and is a big part of her process. I mean, not only psychically with her bipolar disease and psychosis risk that she carries with that bipolar 1, but also, you know, leaky gut. I am positive that she had leaky gut from this intense emotional assault that she had from the time she left the womb that caused, you know, ill health in her gut microbiome, trouble with maintaining the boundaries of her gut that probably made her more susceptible to autoimmune disease. And I mean, I think that's all I wanted to say. Pluto in the 4th house, that, you know, she had intense security assaults, and that what was the hardest thing for her to do as a soul being incarnate? Well, it's allowing herself to be vulnerable. So the next, so Stephen Hawking is a theoretical physicist. He's passed away, but he was diagnosed at a very young age with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, which is a motor neuron disease. So basically, it is about disintegration of the nervous system. So that's this Neptune, you know, disintegration. And it became a very personal process because this moon is directly involved with this nodal axis. And we can see here Neptune as ruler of that south node in the 12th house. So, and in the same sign. So it's emphasizing this process of, you know, it is about disintegration. It's also, though, when you're given this diagnosis as a 22-year-old, he was very young when he was diagnosed with this condition and told you have 2 years to live. Well, we know that wasn't true. But very quickly, he had to develop a relationship with his life or end his life. You know, I mean, he had to really deal with this unfair situation that he was born with. And so that can be seen with this signature. Also, squaring the nodes here is this Jupiter in the 8th house. So facing deep fears, you know, and looking at this Jupiter in Gemini, he was given amazing mental facility. This disease does not affect your mental aptitude at all. But, you know, it wasn't an easy road for him. He perpetually had to ask questions about his deepest sense of security in regard to the truth. You know, Gemini, what was true? And he was the one that really kind of assaulted the status quo in theoretical physics. So very brave confrontation of the truth that was known during his lifetime. So those are all the slides that I have in this deck. And I hope I've got across this water element, the importance of the soul's evolution, as shown with the water element, the way that vulnerability, going to our deepest fears are so relevant and important, and that we can really fast track really intense issues with ourselves and our clients by looking closely at this signature in the natal chart. So thanks for listening, everybody. That's all I got. I don't know if there's any questions. I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
That was wonderful. I'm really taken by one of the things you said about the Cancer fourth house archetype. It's the energy that we eat of. And it's something that I'll definitely take forward, because it just it's so descriptive.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I love that image, because it just brings us right, that immediacy with something as simple as our moon. And so I think it is very relevant for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And
Thanks for asking. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we'll put your contact information and any other information that you want.
Yeah, I will send it to you. Do you want me to go back to this first page? I have that there, people can see it, but
Right.
I'll send it to you, all that information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We look forward
to seeing you again.
Yeah. We look forward to more.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.